Peace and blessings to the family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boxing community. And I just appreciate everybody coming through later on, show some love. Just finished a live stream. Uh, Getting ready to hit y'all with another one, hitting y'all with another one. I'm going to talk about, you know, the classic fight this afternoon between our brother, the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder, and Derek Ward, Chisora. But before I get to that, let me kind of recap last weekend. Of course, prior to this weekend, last weekend, Moses Utoma versus Jermaine Franklin. And I'm not going to lie, Jermaine Franklin is, he's not an elite level heavyweight, but, he's solid, he's durable, he's a good journeyman. But of course, young Moses, he put a whooping on Jermaine Franklin. He walked him into a savage right uppercut, and that pretty much was it for Jermaine Franklin. It would be, honestly, I would like to see Moses fight against, Fabio Wardley. I mean, I think that'll be a good showdown, but, who knows? From my understanding, Wardley is supposed to he's supposed to defend against Daniel Dubois. We'll see how that really unfolds. In terms of the heavyweight division, I'm not gonna lie, Wilder was right. Without him, the heavyweight division, it does not have any jazz, any spice, any pizzazz, so on and so forth. But, Jermaine Franklin, he was game. He put up valiant effort. But, that young man was way too much for him. But the thing that really kind of stood out to me last weekend, the Tower and Inferno, Sebastian Fundora. Man, he put a demo down and he savagely beat up Keith One-Time Thurman. And, that was one of my concerns going into last week's fight when it came to Keith Thurman was the fact that, man, Keith Thurman only fought like 2 times in like the last 6 years. And I'm like, bro, Keith Thurman, man, look, hey, I was kind of concerned for him going into this particular fight. But that's one thing about him, he got a good mouthpiece. He talk a good game. He a good trash talker. So I'm like, all right, well, hey, let's see what he's going to do. And I'm not going to lie. The Tower and Inferno, Sebastian Fundora. One thing he's done better like the last couple fights, he's kind of fully using his height and his reach to his advantage. In the past, he would always like fight inside. He would give up his height, and he was a good infighter. And, there's one thing, shout out to the Queens of the Ring. There's one thing that Nick J and Boxiana would always point out. Like him and his sister, like they used to have like these thick ass glasses, kind of like the glasses I used to have when I was a kid, when I was younger, the bifocals, like my sister called them, and from my understanding, I think he had LASIK surgery. So maybe his vision is much improved. But even with that being said, he did an excellent job using his height, using his reach, keep One-Time Thurman at the end of his punches. And I thought, Keith Thurman using like a Muhammad Ali type strategy from the standpoint of using a lot of movement. I thought that really was going to benefit Keith Thurman, but it really didn't. It didn't help him because, Sebastian Fundora was walking him down. He was cutting off the ring at certain points. He was walking Keith Thurman in the shots. And even when Keith Thurman tried to use, that Roy Jones Jr. like lunging left hook, straight right hand combination, man, it didn't really help when he tried to jump in with a straight right hand and a lunging left hook. It really didn't matter because Sebastian Fundora he's beating the brakes off of Keith Thurman. And I felt like it was a good stoppage. Keith Thurman, he felt like the referee stopped the fight too early. And I'm thinking to myself, bro, like, Sebastian Fundora was savagely beating you up. When I say he was savagely beating him up, he was savagely beating him up. And for him to say, oh, the referee stopped the fight too early. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand the warrior in these fighters, they won't go out on their shield. They don't want their trainer or the referee to stop the fight. But in many instances, You got to save fighters from themselves. And I think in this particular situation, I think it was a good stoppage. And his eye was cut from a punch. He was bleeding a lot. So at the end of the day, I felt like it was a good stoppage by the referee. And I never saw Keep One Time Thurman get beat up in that fashion. And truthfully speaking, I think it's time for him, unless he's gonna fight against another journeyman type fighter, unless he fight like maybe one of those Charlo brothers or something, and he get him a big payday. Maybe the both of them get a big payday. Keith Thurman, he on PBC. I think both of the Charlos on PBC. So if he fight, if him and Mel could fight it, I don't know. If they could fight at junior middleweight, hey. But based on what I saw last weekend from Sebastian Fundora, Xander Zayas and Jerron Boots is supposed to be fighting. I would like to see because I felt like Sebastian Fundora, I really legitimately felt like he ducked Terrence Bud Crawford before Crawford went up and fought against Canelo. I felt like Sebastian Fundora ducked him. No two ways about it. And it would be interesting. And of course, I know he really always wanted like a veteran name to put on his resume. I felt like he kind of was cherry picking. From my understanding, he wanted to fight against Errol Spence Jr. And for those individuals that know me, like my three favorite fighters are, in no particular order, of course, the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder, Devin the Dream Haney, Errol Spence Jr., and of course, since he's from my home state of Louisiana, uh, I'm a fan of Rougarou also, you know what I'm saying? So those kind of like my top four. At one point, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. was kind of like five, but at this point, I think he kind of quasi-retired. But even with that being said, uh, it will be interesting to see if Sebastian Fundora, I kind of felt like he wanted a Keith Thurman, Errol Spence Jr., name on his resume in terms of a big name, but somebody coming off a long layoff that was kind of right for the picking. So I think that's how they kind of set it up. But to me, it will be interesting to see if everything he did against Keep One Time Thurman last weekend, if he fought against a Jerron Boots Ennis, a Xander Zayas, a Virgil Ortiz, uh, one of those type of younger, more vibrant, fresher fighters. If he fought against a more of a live fighter, a more vibrant, fresher fighter, closer to his age, would he be able to beat up on a Jerron Boots Ennis? Would he be able to beat up on the Xander Zayas, a Virgil Ortiz, somebody closer to his own age, like another young lion like himself? I kind of felt like it just was like the perfect storm in terms of, him being able to beat up on Keep One Time Thurman. And I'm not gonna lie, I think it's time for Keep One Time Thurman to hang it up unless he fighting against another journeyman like himself. Man, salute to my brother Jared Lovin Green. Salute to your fam. But I mean, he beat the brakes off of Keep One Time Thurman. And of course, the main topic of this show, the post fight reaction for our brother, the Bronze Bomber Deontay Wilder against Derek Ward Chisora. I'm not gonna lie, this was a classic fight. I was backstage kicking in with my brother, the General, 7 8 Sports TV, Cadillac Red, brother Brent Fox. A lot of our brothers was backstage in the building, you know what I'm saying? Salute to the family. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, which I was extremely nervous, watching this Deontay Wilder, Derek Chisora fight. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. I felt like, they tried to rob Wilder. Because truthfully speaking, I kind of felt like, at a certain point in the fight where, you know, Wilder had Derek Chisora. I felt like there were a few times in the fight Deontay Wilder had Derek Chisora hurt. The referees, they they kind of saved that referee. That referee, he saved Derek Chisora, in my personal opinion, a couple times. Wilder knocking through the ropes. He had him hurt, and he knocked him down. And not only that, but uh, people from Derek Chisora's corner, his trainer, got in the ring, helped him up the whole nine. He kept tackling Deontay Wilder. All the extra weight that Derek Chisora carried into the fight. I think he came in at 266. It really kind of showed at certain points in the fight, like Derek Chisora was extremely tired. So I'm like, dang, man, this dude tired. Man, I hope like Champ can get him out there. And of course, myself, Brent Fox, the general, we backstage, man, we was rooting Wilder on, you know what I'm saying? And man, bro, I'm not gonna lie. That referee just kept cheating. And the thing that kind of pissed me off the most was when Wilder slipped and he counted as a knockdown. I'm like, bro, are you serious? And then on top of that, like I said, when Wilder had him hurt, and for you to stop the action, the same way they did when when Tank Davis was hurt, and he, basically he said he had some grease in his eye, whatever the case is. So at the end of the day, bro, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like they did everything they could to really, help Derek Chisora. There was no way that on a scorecard you can give more rounds to Derek Chisora than you could give to Deontay Wilder. That one judge that had it, what, 115, 113? Hey, man, he need to get his eyes examined. There's no way in hell. I mean, the fix was clearly in. I really felt like they really tried to give that fight to Derek Chisora. And then, of course, AJ looking like a little brilla sitting in the front row, you know what I'm saying? Trying to get all the fans to rally behind Derek Chisora. And man, he wanted Derek Chisora to beat Deontay Wilder so bad so he don't have to fight him. I'm like, bro, just man, pull your skirt down, bro. Quit acting like a little brilla, you dig? I'm not gonna lie, bro. That dude, man, hey, at one point I used to be a fan of his, just like at one point I was a fan of Tank Davis. Man, both of these dudes, and to me, they both showed how cowardly they really are in terms of, not pushing themselves, not fighting the best possible competition they could fight. Tank Davis, of course, he didn't avoid it. Individuals like, Devin the Dream Haney and Shakur Stevenson, Vasil High-Tech Lomachenko. Hell, he didn't want to fight Mr. Gary Russell Jr. and Tevin Farmer. So Tank has never challenged himself his entire career. And the same thing I think applies to Anthony Joshua. He didn't give Ruiz his rematch. They didn't get that third fight in the trilogy. And in addition to that, this boy pretty much ducked Deontay Wilder his entire career. And as soon as the fight was over, he got up out of Dodge. But the crazy thing is Wilder was walking to the back and, AJ shaking hands in the front row and all that. Basically Wilder was like, hey, man, let's make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Hey, he didn't even respond to Wilder. I'm like, bro, you fugazi, bro. You a bro. You don't want no smoke. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie. This was a classic fight between, Wilder and Chisora. I was hoping that Wilder could stop Chisora, but of course, Chisora, you got to give him credit. He a dog. He was game. He came to fight. Both of them were extremely fatigued at certain points in the fight. I felt like there were like a few times Champ punched himself out, Deontay Wilder punched himself out, but the referee, they did everything they could to help Derek Chisora. There was no way that was a split decision. That should have clearly been a unanimous decision. I really think there were points in the fight that he could have stopped Derek Chisora had it not been for the referee, giving him every benefit of the doubt. They even took a point from Wilder. Man, hey, Chisora was tired, but to pass out, grabbing Wilder, pulling Wilder down, suplexing him and all kind of nonsense. And instead of like, all right, hey, y'all get up, with the woo. He talking to both of them like, hey, y'all need to quit all this rough out stuff. They eventually ended up taking the point from Wilder. I'm like, bro, man, that referee sucked. The judge sucked. And overall, I mean, I understand, Derek Chisora, he's from the UK. But the crazy thing about it is you cannot get American fighters to stay on code the way UK fighters, the way they support each other over there, the whole nine, man, it was crazy. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie, it was a classic fight. I really enjoyed it, especially, kicking it backstage with the brothers, with the general, with brother Brent Fox, with Cadillac Red, the whole crew, you know what I'm saying? So, it was a heck of a fight. I'm glad Wilder got the dub. Unfortunately, from my understanding, he broke his hand. 7-8 was saying that he broke his hand. So I don't know when Champ gonna come back, but at the end of the day, I was glad that Wilder, won. But I'm not gonna lie, I got major respect for Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora, dog. You know what I'm saying? If this was his last fight, considering he got 14 losses, I'm not gonna lie, this dude, I rock with Chisora because I feel like he a real one. You know what I'm saying? You can't say that, but a whole lot of fighters in 2026 in this day and age in boxing. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I was happy that Wilder was able to get the dub. And it's gonna be interesting to see, what happens from here. Not only that, but just kind of looking ahead, when it comes to Wardley and Dubois, it's gonna be interesting to see if Wardley could win that fight, or if Dubois could actually get the dub. Because truthfully speaking, I'm not gonna lie, the first time Dubois fought against Usyk, I felt like really Dubois really won that fight. They called it a low blow. Man, fighters moving forward, when they fight Alexander Usyk, they got to realize Alexander Usyk does not take body punches well. And the irony is, yeah, Chisora, he lost to Wilder today, but I felt like of all the heavyweights that actually fought Alexander Usyk, I felt like Derek Chisora gave Alexander Usyk his best fight to this day as a heavyweight. He really kind of roughed him up or whatever. Dubois hurt him to the body. And instead of him going back, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know he was fighting in Usyk backyard. But man, hey, you hurt the dude to the body. I really felt like he stopped him. But of course, the same way the referee kind of was trying to help Derek Chisora, they helped Alexander Usyk at home, especially being that he was the undisputed champion at the time. He still is in my mind, but that's another story. So, they gave him time and he recouped and he ended up stopping Dubois. But Dubois should have kept going back to the body, you know what I'm saying? So whoever fight Usyk, you got to go to the body. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens between Wardley and Dubois. That's going to be an interesting fight. Looking forward to seeing who's going to win that fight. But more than anything, I'm just happy to see Champ, get back in the win column and get back, to doing what he does. What is he going to do moving forward? Whatever he's doing, whatever he's going to do in the future, I'm rocking with Wilder. You know what I'm saying? If you want to tie him, I'm cool with that. If he want to fight on, if he want to try to get the fight with Usyk, try to become champion again. If he does try to become champion again, I'm rocking with him in that regard also. But either way, I'm rocking with him. It was a classic fight between Derek Chisora and our brother, the Bronze Bomber, Deontay Wilder. It just was a great fight. But, that's it for this first episode of Boxing on the Bayou. I'm your humble host, Coach 67 Sports TV. I'm going to catch y'all on the rebound. Appreciate everybody that's going to come through later and watch the playback. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening. And peace and blessings to the family. And salute to the awesome and amazing LDBC. Yeah, they.